Hey, storytelling Ron. I want to talk about creation versus evolution and how the world never gets the creation science or story or overview or 101 or even the basics of creation science. And I actually don't consider this an evangelist tool because when you talk to people, you can tell they're brainwashed. They react in that kind of, but, and they don't actually want to have a conversation about it. But creation science it's science. It's science because the Bible makes claims like a hypothesis, and then you go and look for evidence or do tests based on those claims, and then come up with a theory or say no, this is incorrect, or this is correct, and we can follow through with this exploration and see. For example, in Genesis 30, Jacob breeds different sheep. That is a scientific claim. Can sheep have variety? Can they be bred to have different kinds? So the Bible claims that there will be variety within a kind. Let's test that out. Yes, we can test that out. That's a scientific claim, and we find evidence for that. And we observe it, and it happens. We can do that with every kind of creature. We find that they have variety. We can breed different cows. We breed different koi, and goldfish, and carp, and all, and pets. So that is a fact that then is part of creation science right there. I just showed you one. There are many assets of science to be done through biblical claims that show them to be true. And that's just one. The Bible, or here, let me just go to the killer, the Noah's global flood. And I'm gonna go through some stuff here. But the Noah's global flood, the Bible claims there's a freaking flood 4,500 years ago, about around 4,500 years ago. That's a global flood. So if this thing is, this is a study Bible. It's really thick. Let me get the cool one that's not just, that's my prop here. It's more than a prop, obviously. My legacy standard sheepskin, because I'm pretending I'm an elitist. Anyway, it's funny. We just had a visiting guy from Grace come to our church, and he had the same Bible. I didn't say, I got that one too. But I can tell he was like. Anyway, nice guy. Anyway, so if this claims there was a global flood 4,500 years ago, that is ridiculous. That is utterly ridiculous, because if you claim that, people can disprove it. So if they can find that global flood crap and get rid of it and prove that it never happened, then what are you doing? You can't do you can't do a religion like that. You can't do a religion where you make these historical and factual claims that people can find evidence for, and disprove it. So if there's okay, this makes a claim that there's a global flood about 4,500 years ago. It's ridiculous. Well, if there was a global flood about 4,500 years ago, what we know about flooding is that it does all this liquefaction crap, right? It does sedimentary layers. When you put a bunch of different sands together, and then wash it in water, and then stop and let it settle, it goes into sedimentary layers, right? It does it based on the weight and density of the sands start to separate into these layers, and you will see, you see those toys with the different colored sands, and they will do that. Thankfully, all over the world, we don't have sedimentary layers. Oh, wait a minute. We do. Okay, well, you know what I mean? Well, if there was a global flood, which we can disprove, then creatures, right? They would be, I don't know, buried in these sedimentary layers. So we don't find that. Huge, vast swathes of it across several states, right? We don't see that. Because that would require a global flood. A global flood, if we saw sedimentary layers going across 3 or 4 states, that's massive. That's not a valley or something. That's beyond anything we can comprehend. So there wouldn't be that. Okay, so anyway, you get my point. The Bible, before anyone did any geology, claimed there was sedimentary layers, but tons of creatures would be buried in those layers and fossilized. The claim that say this amount of dirt takes 100,000 years of the same kind of dirt, the same weight and density, Like the same type of limestone is laid down over 100,000 years. You and I have seen everywhere, correct? Like we've seen in the city limestone being laid down over the last 50 years perfectly, this thin shell forming everywhere, right? You've seen that because over the last 30 years I've been here. It's the same, and it's going to, for another 100,000 years, that same limestone or shell or whatever you want to pick is going to lay there and we all see it. We don't see erosion washing that away, right? We just see the same layers. Oh, and then some creature lays in there, and that's what we see now for 30 years. We see a creature laying there, getting stuck there and not moving, and we leave it alone, of course, because that's what happens everywhere all the time. So over 100,000 years, creatures just sort of die and lay there and get fossilized and encased perfectly or whatever. So that's what they're claiming, and you know what I mean? And we don't see that. We never see that. It's ridiculous. Think about this: 100,000 years of this type of land, and there's a T-Rex in there. Oh yeah, that laid there for 100,000 years as the limestone built up over 100,000 years, and then compressed air. What are you talking about? That's what they believe because it's in the bones. Okay, so I'm going off crazy here, but that's the absurdity of it, and the Bible says they're going to be absurd and willfully and ignorant. But let's get to this. Let's get to the video here. This guy's great. Dr. something or another. He's on a list. He's an Answers to Genesis, and he did some research, and this video just came out. So if you want to check it out, it's really cool on the Answers to Genesis channel. So he's discovers this, and this is something I've known for. But 1%. There's only about 1% of universities across America that allow or even have that support creation science. That even allow it into the university, right? And of course I don't think they allow evolution, so whatever. Anyway, so 1%. What he discovered is that 99% of scientists, 99% that do research support evolution. Okay, I'm just gonna get to his conclusion. You guys, it's still a great video though. His conclusion is then, well, if 99% of universities do evolution, but only 1% do creation, and 99% of scientists believe in evolution, what do you know? They have never been exposed to creation science. They have no idea what it is. They have no clue. And that's the same for most people. Most people actually, about half of America believes in creation science. But of those, I would say only like 5% even know what it is. They just do it out of faith, or, they hate these evolutionists or whatever. But it is hilarious to me that 99% of universities don't allow creation science, don't allow whatever, and they don't allow that, so that everyone believes that, and only 50% of people believe in evolution. About 50% believe in creation or what God said. So that's kind of hilarious to me and wonderful, but lame that the vast majority of the entertainment, comics, stories are all evolution. What's sad is I was reading Solomon Kane, written by Robert E. Howard, the Conan guy, and he meant in Solomon Kane, I can read it through the lines of the work that Robert E. Howard couldn't grasp God very well in Christianity, and there was a line in there in Solomon Kane where it's all about millions of years in evolution. Because back in the 30s, we were pounded in the 60s and 70s, 80s, when I grew up, 80s, we were pounded with evolution. Just pounded with it in everything. Cosmos, I watched that with Carl Sagan. We were forced to believe it because we believed in what they told us. And we believed that they were telling the truth. We thought scientists were telling the truth. Let me jump to this. Peer review. We thought that peer review is how you do science. So, for instance, the Genesis 30, Jacob breeds different sheep. That's a hypothesis. You then create a theory. You do all your evidence and showing what happens, blah blah blah, and do some tests, and then you present it as an article or a journal, or a scientific journal, and then others look at it, or before you get it into the journal, others look at it and do peer review or, and then if oh, this is a theory that really is a fact or whatever, then they put it into the journals and say, ta-da, we found that these are the findings. The problem today is that peer review is not working anymore. And here I just got this sort of AI thing of it. Peer review is not working, but the reason it's not working is because it's all taken up by atheists. Atheists don't care about the truth. Thou shalt not bear false witness is not an atheist belief. It is not foundational to their belief. Thou shalt not bear false witness is a Christian belief. And we Christians created science, by the way. We created it, and we created the peer review system, but we thought people would be telling the truth. And sadly, in the 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s, 80s, we thought scientists were following peer review and were so, we're going to do the right thing. Why did we fall for that? The Bible says man's a liar, inherently, a sinner. So that's the whole reason that the Christian scientists created the peer review, was to double check the science. The problem is that you put 10 atheists in a room and all 10 atheists can lie. You put 9 atheists in a room with a Christian, and guess what? There's going to be a problem, because one of them is going to be like, hey, wait a minute. But if you put 10 in together, they're going to say, you know what? Let's just go with this lie. Why not? We're going to get money. We're going to get power. Slowness and inefficiency. It takes a year or longer and is costly, especially given the unpaid labor of reviewers. So when you do a scientific test, and then there's a bunch of them that are being thrown out there by everybody, every university, and so to actually do peer review requires you to replicate the tests and do a series of different tests and literally do as much work as the original person. So nobody wants to do that. Inconsistency, right? You don't follow it really well. It's not your passion or claim, whatever this scientist did with the sheep. I'm not into sheep. I don't care. Just pass. Go ahead. I'm not going to mess with sheep. Reviewer burden, lack of training, bias is a huge one. I don't like sheep. I like cows. So I'm going to say no to this, Jacob's theory thing and just go do my cows, whatever. I mean, but you know what I mean? That peer review is not working because it's too out of control. There's too much going on, and we're falling for, and it's getting inbred too, and it's getting political. I mean, it's always been. So that's the problem with peer review. Should we get rid of peer review? No, but we need people actually who have moral foundations to run it. Just like we need people with moral foundations to run the U.S. Constitution. We cannot have the amoral, the atheists, and the Islamists, and the Marxists running our cities, being our politicians. That should actually be a religious test. I don't know why we're tolerating Islam and Hinduism here in America. They are antithetical to the U.S. Constitution. They are dangerous to the U.S. Constitution. We're supposed to be supporting the U.S. Constitution. And the only thing that supports that, truthfully, is Christianity or agnosticism. Or, a liberal agnostic, fine, but a libertarian. But even then, it's the U.S. Constitution was written when the population was 98% Christian, and I don't even mean Christian like they were all absolutely Christian, saved by Christ, but they were ethically and morally and within a culture of Christians and a church culture. And for us to fall for the left's sort of freedom from religion, separation of church and state. And church, by the way, means Christian, separation of Christians from the state, but not Marxism or Islam. No, those can go right on in. LGBTQ can go right on into the government and start pushing their agenda. And that's what's happening. So this 99%. So he concludes the real reason that they're 99%, is because they never been exposed to it. The heck did I bookmarked it here for some reason. I know why. So here's a list of modern creation scientists. So all of these say that evolution, and by the way, the theory of evolution is nothing. It's like climate change, global warming, global cooling. This and everything is climate change. Theory of evolution is like, everything is evolution. Like what? That's not science. You have to have a verifiable way of proving one specific thing, and if it's disproven, then you have to get rid of it. They will not get rid of the theory of evolution that's not actually how theories work. You have an hypothesis. One is things evolve slowly over time. Let's just go to the simple one. Evolution claims that things evolve slowly over time. Well, they're discovering that things change fast as well. They've seen adaptations by minnows and fish and stuff quickly in their environments. Oh, so they're like, oh, things can evolve quickly over time. And guess what? Also, they've discovered some things don't evolve at all because they're finding fossils of modern creatures and insects buried with dinosaurs. And they, by the way, remove those from museum displays with dinosaurs because they don't want to confuse us, even though they find them in the fossils with them. They find modern creatures with dinosaurs. So the theory of evolution now has things evolve slowly over time, things evolve quickly over time, and some things don't evolve at all. You can't have a theory like that. If things evolve slowly over time, and then we find things that evolve quickly over time, that theory is done. It doesn't work. Peer-reviewed, out. But they won't do that. Everything we find, is part of evolution. So that is not science. That's not how science works, okay? You get that, right? I hope you get that. So these scientists, all these names here are basically saying that evolution is not working. Any part of it, or not any, but most of it. So that you can't have this thing. And that, it only takes... Science is not a democracy. You can't have 10,000 scientists saying, the theory of evolution works. But if you have 10,001, the one guy says, no, I've shown you here it doesn't work, then it's out. You have to start over. But they won't. They won't because it's not a theory. It's a religion. It's an agenda. It's an agenda to lull the population into following or being wishy-washy and weak-kneed in their faith. Let's move on. So, 2 laws by Arkansas and another state in the 80s and then even before that, they try to create a fair, balanced treatment for creation science and evolution in the public schools. They tried to do this in the public schools, make this law, and there's a second law in Louisiana, I believe. But all of them were shut down. They were shut down. And this is the other one. They just wanted to present evolution. You can do that, and that's fine, but you got to present also creation science. Well, the left and the evolutionists couldn't stand that. So over the next 10 or 20 years, they got rid of it. So they made it practically illegal to do creation, and you could only do evolution. So if you brought in creation science into a public school system, you would be attacked. Attacked by your job would be on the line. You would lose your position. This guy is one I've been following for years. Fred Armitage, I believe. Or Fred Armitage? Dr. Mark Armitage. Supervisor of the Electron and Confocal Microscope Laboratory Lab at Cal State University, Northridge, which he installed and ran for 3 years. He was terminated for no reason on March 5th, 2013, directly following the public release of dino soft tissue and data on the age of dinosaurs. So he found this, and this was after even it was being exposed by the woman who was the assistant to Horner, who was the influence of their Jurassic Park. It's on YouTube, the 60 Minutes, about her, Mary Schweitzer, discovering the soft tissue. She discovered it because she was trying to clean out a bone, and she put too much acid in it, like a typical woman. I'm being silly. But she just said, hey, let me just go ahead and look at it since I ruined it. And she found within it soft tissue. She found this. So she was one who discovered it, but because remember, nobody, when we got dinosaur fossils, which are not bones, by the way, they're mineralized shapes of what was left. Well, it wasn't fully fossilized. So within the center of these fossils, there was still a bit of the bone and the proteins and the soft tissue, the blood cells. The reason this stuff was preserved is because it was the way it was fossilized. It was buried quickly due to sedimentary layers and flooding. But the important part is you can't just have it buried in these mud layers. It has to dry out, because when it dries out pretty quickly, it has to dry out. Then the microbes and the fungus can't get into the bone and start eating away at all of that. So when it was dried out, the bones remain intact. It literally preserved like a refrigerator, but not cold, but just nothing. The microbes and fungus could not, died out, so they couldn't start eating away at the bones. So thusly, it was just becoming mineralized naturally, and wasn't being, melted into an organic goo the way we normally see today, like with fungus and microbes eating away at stuff. Thusly, these things remained intact, and just encased and then slowly fossilized, but only a few thousand years old is what we're claiming now, saying, because it doesn't last that long. It won't last millions of years for sure, being fossilized and finally drying out. It never got to fully dry out yet. So they're finding these big thigh bones and big, dinosaur bones. They're still some of the fossil, the actual true cells and tissue intact in there. Dead, but intact. And he was fired. He was fired for exposing that. And I think he did get into like some arguments with locals, other scientists, because they didn't want him to expose that. So creation scientists are being fired, and I remember him talking about it too with other, about this whole thing over and over whenever they bring up any sort of creation science within a public school, public university, or any university, other than the few 1% that actually accept creation science. So we're being shut out. But you know what? We're growing. Creation science is actually very young compared to evolution science, because we didn't know they were lying for all these years. We didn't know that their peer review was becoming so inbred and agenda driven that they were deceiving everyone. And poor Robert E. Howard was being deceived by it. We were being bombarded by evolution theory saying the Bible is a lie, And today we're starting to look at the claims of the Bible, the global flood, the dinosaur flood, that discovery. Remember that discovery only happened in the last 30 years, 1990, I believe. She discovered that, and then the first thing they said is, we have to we have to redo evolution. But what they did is they said that things can last millions of years because what they found in the cells was a high concentration of iron. So that must have just made it last millions of years. They found a stupid escape, device. I think God. I wonder if God has enough eye roll power, his eyes rolling. I wonder if he has enough power because of how much man continually evolves the theory of evolution, how they continually squirm. And I've seen it myself. That's why I don't use it as an evangelist tool anymore, because it's so ridiculous, the squirming that they do. It's like, you know what? We just got to go to the sin part of it all. So that's his conclusion. It's a great video. I'm going to go through a couple of books right now just to show you guys some handy stuff. I was an absolute evolution dude, masturbating to porn and becoming a Christian, conservative, becoming a Christian. Totally thought those things would be fine. Evolution, masturbating to porn, fine. They're hot, When my sister suggested that man lived with dinosaurs, and some creationists believe that, I was like, what? That is ridiculous. That is stupid. That is dumb. But she gave me, I believe she gave me a book or something. Answers in book. There's one. I think it's in my room. I've actually got it on my shelf. But these are these are the really cool. These answers books. This is 3, 2, 3, and 4. So what I did, somehow the Holy Spirit is I decided, fine, I'll read it. And I did it as a toilet read. This is before phones and stuff. This is my toilet read, Answers in Book 1. Because I thought it was silly. I thought that's all it deserved, was a toilet read. Just a few minutes on the toilet was what I gave these books. And I was blown away. Like the first few, I was like, what? I never knew that. I never taught. I don't even know how dating methods works, like carbon-14 and all that. Huh? I didn't know astronomy did know that much. You know what I mean? So what it is they at the beginning it has like a bunch of questions you might have about are mutations part of the engine of evolution? Are biblical creationists divisive? Just different. Where did the idea of millions of years come from? What's wrong with progressive creation? So there's all kinds of cool questions in these. And the first one is the good, obviously the more biting ones, and I have no, I'm gonna get it. But these are great. I just was like, wait a minute, and they're fun short reads. the questions and then the premise, and they have like illustrations and graphs and resources and all that. So that was like I was pooping out evolution and getting in better than food. I mean, it was just a glorious toilet read. I'm gonna tell you, I was excited to go poop again. That was just wonderful. So, and then I started reading it off the pooper, and then I got this book. This is freaking amazing. This was done in the '80s, and this is like John the Baptist yelling out in the wild with no one listening. So in the I think this guy's kind of considered like the godfather of creation, Walt Brown. And in this, look at this. I mean, look at this. This is done in the '80s. I don't know how this guy had these. Did he even have a printing press? I mean, it's crazy. Must have used a potato press, because we Christians just didn't have anything back then. Look at that. But this guy is doing all kinds of science in here, and they're great because a ton of it is, and they got references and stuff. But a ton of they're little short reads, like reading little bits, and I found this a fun read too. But crazy in the different categories. It has natural science, astronomy, and all that. But this was I don't even know how I got this, but I got it. And the Kent Hovind in the 1990s. Today he's kind of weirdy, but still Christian, but weirdy guy. But anyway, his videos, they're like VHS, so they're really, really bad kind of videos, but they're still great. I watched all of those. He did 23 debates in the 90s. He was a high school science guy. He, wasn't a professor. There was nowhere to go to learn creation science back then. And he was mad or whatever, but he went around challenging scientists at these universities when evolution had ruled with an iron fist, and he destroyed all of them. Watch them. Go on. They're on YouTube somewhere. Ken Hovind debates, and there's like 20 plus of them, and they're wonderful. It's probably better just to listen to them because the video's not so great. But they're out there, and he destroyed them. So in the early 2000s or whatever it was, they said will not debate creationists anymore. No one. We will not debate them. They're stupid. We don't. That's what they do. They dehumanize us. They call us racist and white supremacists. They call everything we're fascists. Everything. They will not talk to us. And it makes read your Bible. Read your Bible. The wicked are the wicked. That's what they're going to do. God bless them. So he destroyed them in these debates. These were scientists at all these universities, like biology and all evolutionists. He destroyed them, and it was amazing. So check those out. And he got arrested finally for, they said, tax evasion, but he got arrested and had to spend 7 or 10 years in jail because of he was making a lot of money. People were sending him money. He was making money. He made every one of his workers, his helpers, he made them all biblical, like missionaries or whatever, so that they all had tax breaks. So he looked for every tax break he could because he didn't like the government. And that's what they got him on, was that he was acting like a drug. The drug lords would bring in $9,900 so that they wouldn't be reported to the tax, and then they put him on different banks. That's what he did because he didn't want to deal with the taxes. And so they got him on that because they made a new law to go after drug dealers who did that. But he did it just because he hated paying taxes and he didn't want to deal with all this tax crap, and he was, didn't like the federal government. So they got him on that, and that was what he was arrested for. But they all knew he was not a drug dealer, and they knew he lived a very simple life where he was just building a missionary or whatever, or mission. And he's doing it today too. He's still got some sort of, he's trying to build like a Disneyland creation science, place for people. So he's kind of goofy like that. But anyway, him and they'll have a disagreement on election, Calvinist election. So he believes that all Christians or all people have free will to choose Christ, and that's where I differ from him. And so I've kind of like myself moved on to some other creationists because so I do respect and love this guy, but in his hard work, and I believe he's a Christian, but we have that difference. So I'm gonna move on to other creationists who I believe are whatever. But anyway, this is a really good one here. The these are also Dr. Carl Warner. I did a video interview with this guy. This I love this too. I use this with my kids on homeschool, but it talks about all the basic evolution stuff and how they all lied. They all broke, and he takes case by case. And these are great. This is actually a great read just for you as an adult. You know, it's all pictograph, perfect, with lots of stuff in it, lots of info. This guy's a crazy. This one's it's getting all cracked and dry, but I love it. And for the kids, it's actually really cool to sit down with your kids and read through it and show them things and talk about it. So that's a great one for you to have. Brainwash your kids. Brainwash your kids. Do not, I'll talk to them when. No. Rant over and over. Get them tired of your ranting, for God's sake. Because the world is going to take your kids and try to destroy them. You need to brainwash your kids. You need to be the father and teach them. And teach them stuff like this one is a great one to do with them. This one is then follow-up. And basically, I love reading through it myself because I just obsessed over it. But this is him going to the museums, and he did it in the first one too. But this one is him going to the museums and proving that there's modern fossils in the dinosaur fossils. And he, over and over, he's got it documented here. And he went to all the museums because they all stupidly thought that he was just a regular evolution, 99% evolution. So they gave him access to everything because that's what you're supposed to do in museums, is let scientists have access to the the fossils, the drawers, and so you can go and look. And that's what he did. And he just documents over and over all the fossils and all the stuff. And he talks to people and he has them on video, but he has their excerpts about all the modern fossils that are inside where the dinosaurs are. And then this one is his latest about all the lies of the anthropomorphic things where they talk about how there's this missing link and the apes turned into humans. And just look at that, man. Just crazy stuff, man. I mean, he really, we Christians believe in bibliographies. We believe in footnotes, endnotes, resources and what we did and peer review. The reason you put all the footnotes and endnotes in these things and document it is for peer review, so that others can peer review it. But the left doesn't believe in that. They believe in mamby-pamby theorizing, pagany pageantry of their personalities and of their agenda. So creation science is a wonderful tool to help other Christians in their faith and for your children. That's kind of what it's for, because they go after the children with dinosaurs and millions of years ago. And Disneyland does it. Everybody does it. Sad. In Disneyland, the tram ride, there's a dinosaur section and it says millions and millions of years ago, dinosaurs ruled the earth. So even Disneyland, back in when that was made, and I don't know when that tram was made, it's the 80s probably, or 60s, 70s, they were forced to believe in evolution. And I mean forced, because remember, there's those laws that having fair balance of both those laws were shut down by judge hunting and Supreme Court hunting by the left, like they're doing today with Trump, or everything that he does. They shop for judges and they use that to destroy freedom of thought, freedom of an election. They don't believe in elections. They lie to you. They don't believe in elections. I hate the wicked. I really am sick and tired. I want Jesus to come. I, Ron, hate them. I, Ron, the Christian, gotta be nice and all that. The solution: get back to your church, build your church up, spend time at your church, do things for the church, work with your church. Hey, let's have a little creation science presentation. I'm going to be doing one in the men's group soon. And I'm trying to get my game in the church, but I can't do it until I get the right amount of people, and I have to learn the process. So I can't just go in there and start, pushing my way into the church. I have to learn the process. And so I'm learning patience and fellowship and working with, and not being a freaking banging gong and a clanging cymbal. I got to learn to work with in the process of the church. I got to mature. I got to freaking maturate and be patient and work with the people there that are the gatekeepers of the church to protect the church, the pastor and the deacons or whoever. they don't want they do love me and want me to do things, but they also don't want me to do a bunch of things so that some weirdo can come in and hey, Ron did that, so why can't I just do it? You know? So I have to be patient and work with the church in starting groups. You too. And I remember this feeling like I want to do them. Oh, they're gonna tell me not to do this. They're gonna stand in. Then I gotta go serve in the freaking food line or whatever. But that's how you get that. Oh, okay. I gotta be patient. I gotta work within the system. So you gotta be patient, and that's what we have to be as Christians: patient with each other and with serving the Lord and serving the church. So you have to spend time and work with the people there and get to know them. You got to become family. You got to earn, but that's the way we have to do things. You're not going to get, no one eats if they don't work, right? Paul said that, or whoever said that in the New Testament. But that's the same with church. No one gets to do things until you work within it, do things there. So you got to do it and do small things, little things, and figure it out. But the reason I'm saying stop being so comfortable in your house and go to your church is because the left organizes, Islam is organizing, they have gangs, and they are controlling regions of America, regions of Africa, or Europe. They are taking over governance. The left is taking, they love city councils and all that. That's their church. That's their worship. And what are we doing? Staying at home and I love the Lord and I'm going to watch some YouTube videos, or whatever, like I was doing and doing a ministry here at home, but I wasn't really, I was alone in that. You got to be part of a team. You got to be part of your gang, the Christ gang, because we have to be the opposing force to all this tyranny. Islam is no different than the tyranny before them, the Persian pagan tyranny before that. Obviously, Satan refined it to counter Christianity specifically, but still, we have to be smarter and keep striving for the Christ as the bride of Christ. And the left has co-opted all Christian things. We soundly beat them before with our Christian things, but the left, the pagans, are using Christian things now to defeat us. They've taken over the charities, they've taken over the schools, they've taken over the universities. They're in the halls of governance as that's their church, so they've taken that over. And we are left with is a church who can barely do anything. We can't do charities. We can't do, we keep getting regulated. We keep getting taxed. We have to do 501c3s. Everything we have to do now is to comply with the pagan state. And because the pagans have taken over the state, we need to get people back into the state. And thankfully, we still have Christians in the states. Don't get me wrong there. We do have a lot, but a ton of pagans in there doing their thing, especially the bureaucracies, the Democrat Party has all their fingers and everything as far as being acting like pagans. So we have to get back to church, organize in our churches, build up that church community and that church culture, and go out that way. If you have something you want to do it through your church. Don't do it through the Republican Party, which we should as a church support, I believe, because they're the closest thing to being Christians as far as political goes. But you do it through your church, and you get your church to try to get political. The church should not be political mainly, but I do think that every church should have a political, spirits of the gift. Some people will have the spirits of the gift that are political, and they should be working that way and training people to be political and and go into governance and under the auspice of a church. And the church should watch over these people. In the church, the pastor should be separate from it, just like all the other ministries or missionary groups in the church that have their gifts of God. We should all be doing different things. Like I want to fight a culture war. I hope that we'll find some youth that want to be a political group in the church and work to examine and go after that, and then give us a report of what's going on politically. I hope there's a group that wants to do arts and crafts, whatever. But our church needs to do it. I want one that definitely does for the children. So that's how our churches should be working. And then, of course, the Sunday service plus many Bible studies on the Word, on the gospel, right? Teaching the gospel, because that gives all of us agency when we know how to read the Bible for ourselves. We all have agency. Ooh, one last thing I want to say. The Reformation happened in the 15th century. And this is I'm not trying to attack Catholics, but the Bible was printed in the 14th century. That was the whole reason we have a printing press was because of the Bible. that's when the Bible started getting out, and that's when the schism happened. 100 years later, and that totally makes sense. I kind of was like thinking about that recently. The whole reason we split from the Catholic Church because we got access to this finally, like the people did. Because before that, remember, the copies were all like rich and noble and hand copied, and finally when we got the printing press, people, it was now like a car, affordable, as opposed to a mansion. So that's kind of cool to think about. Anyway, I mean, maybe not for Catholics, but I love Catholics. In the game of life, everybody, roll holy dice.